Hi everyone, it's 9 o'clock on a Thursday night. From me, Brent Graham. Welcome to the show. It's time for the Handicap Rugby Chat That Matters. We're going to be talking URC. We're into week 5 already. Time absolutely flying. But I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm absolutely salivating at the thought of those year-end internationals coming up. We'll also touch on the NPC, Bunnings NPC. We've got the semi-finals. We've got a guest this year who I'm sure has got a bit of an opinion on those two games. And let's introduce him straight away, all the way from Auckland. It's the Moss Man. Welcome back to the show, Moss Man. Good to have you on as always.
Yeah, thanks a lot. 8 o'clock in the morning here, New Zealand time. So I think the Oracle looks like he's on the brandies and Coke. I'm just on the coffees.
The one thing I can tell you is even if it was 8 o'clock in the morning, you might find Oracle still on the brandies and Coke. Seriously, Oracle, welcome, mate. Is that brandy and Coke you're drinking?
No, it's wine and Coke, red wine and Coke, Katemba, the Portuguese drink. Wonderful. And what's nice about it is you can select your strength. Whereas if you're pouring out of a brandy bottle, you're done with your whatever the percentage is on the bottle. So you can have a light one, you can have a heavy one. Been drinking Katembas for, I don't know, since I was a kid. So yeah, remember them.
Does it have to be a certain type of red wine, or can you just put anything?
No, and I'm going to tell you a very quick story you're going to love. So I go out with my wife to a Christmas party. I've only known her 2 weeks. We go to this really Lani posh restaurant in Umhlanga in Durban. And it's like 32 degrees. It's December 1994. And the waiter brings like a 200 Rand bottle of wine when beers are 3 Rand at the time, like a very expensive bottle of wine. And it's very hot. So I asked the waiter, can I have some ice? So her like director or GM or whatever says to me, you can't put ice in that wine, like it's sacrilege or whatever. I said to him, brew, if you don't keep quiet, I'm going to put some Coke in it as well. And that'll really quieten you down. I never heard from him again for the rest of the evening. So yes, I don't mind. I'm a pap sucker, which is an Afrikaans word for soft pack. So box wine or you get a discount at the bottle store. If the box is broken, you can just buy the actual packet that goes inside it. I'm a sink. I'll drink anything. Don't care. Happy.
Yeah, we call it Chateau de Cardboard in New Zealand.
Chateau de Cardboard is about right.
And let me welcome the guys in the live chat. Mark, we missed you last week. Good to have Mark back on. Hope you're well there, Mark. And then Oracle, I just made the point. I said if you went under 2.5 minutes for Oracle's first story, you're a winner. And I must stress, Mark, because he said over 2.5 minutes on the Oracle. I was talking about how long into the show, but there's no doubt, Mark, you want to go overs if you're talking about the story itself. So fair enough, we can both be winners there. But anyway, Oracle, I'm going to stick with you for the first up as we get into the URC. How did you go last week with the picks? I know I opposed you on some of the games. So I'm assuming you had quite a good weekend because I certainly didn't.
My main bet was the Lions. I was quite disappointed, in fact. Disappointed because I underestimated the Dragons, I'd like to say. And, whilst the Lions had a couple of opportunities towards the end of the game to close out the minus, they didn't. I was just a little bit disappointed that I misread the Dragons. And I remember thinking on Friday after the show, the next morning, thinking, was this bad Sharks or was this good Dragons? And I think the Dragons actually played better than what I'd expected them to. So I missed that one. I got the Edinburgh game right. In fact, I got it very right.
Yes, you did.
That one I was, so I got a little bit back there. Small loser in the end, but not much. It was pennies on the dollar, as to say, or cents on the rand. It was almost flat, but slightly down. So good weekend though. I enjoyed the rugby, and I accept defeat when I have a big bet on a game. My 5-star bet, whatever you want to call it, best bet of the week. Had I reduced my stake on the Lions game, it would have been a winning week. So I did get a few more right than I got wrong. The Edinburgh one saved me from a potentially bad weekend, but the Lions I got wrong. Or should I say I got Dragons wrong? The Lions played a good game. They weren't bad. I just underestimated the Dragons.
Dragons have improved, I agree. And fair enough. The week before you came on and you said, yes, I got virtually all of them wrong, but my big bet was in that case also Correct. The Lions, and it came home and you've showed a profit, and that's all that counts. And sometimes you can have a weekend where you pick plenty of winners, but you just aren't able to turn a profit. Johan and David, I can tell you, saying the Sharks cost them. Well, that was it for me as well, guys. I had a big bet on the South African ladies at 18-10 to beat Italy, and I think they absolutely, in my view, threw the game away after dominating up front. But I was a little bit on tilt, as they say in poker, after that, and I ended up chasing on the Sharks. Needless to say, that didn't turn out well. Eventually, I actually almost folded up and packed in for the weekend. Just nothing going my way. But let's get into the first game then, Oracle. I'm just going to scan down and find it here. And it is, we're talking Friday night. So I didn't delete last week's game, so I just have to make sure I actually bring up the correct ones. We've got the Scarlets up against the Bulls. And Oracle, we've got the Scarlets plus 10.5 at the moment against the Bulls. I handicapped this game pretty close by plus 8.5. And it actually opened plus 12.5. So there has been some money for the Scarlets. What do you make of this one?
I think that Bulls, the Bulls really, they impressed me. I was impressed. It was a scraper in the end, 1 or 2 points. 10 away. This is what I said last week about the Lions. -9. This might be a game to watch a little bit of. At 10, it feels right. I'm not convinced either way. I'm a no bet at this point, but I'd like to watch a bit of the game. But I do think the Bulls have got a little bit more momentum going into this game. I'm not sure if it's their last game, and I say that because I haven't looked at all the fixtures of all the games. But I do notice the Lions are overseas for quite a while. They have
I think the
4
Bulls
games.
might play 3 games overseas, so I think they might still have another one. I stand to be corrected as well on that, but I think so.
Okay. The Scarlets.
Johannes mentioned obviously we have teams for these games, and we'll pull. I'll come back to you, Oracle, but I want to pull down to the Mossman now on this one. We do have team news, and Johannes saying Scarlets plus. He says the Bulls haven't named their strongest side. I've been a bit tied up today, so I actually missed that. Mossman, what do you think of that?
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely not the strongest side, and that's the rationale behind that line movement coming in from 12.5 to 10.5. And I still like the Scarlets at that number. So the Friday games where there is teams, these are the only ones where I've actually run any sort of final numbers to know which direction I'll be looking. So yeah, I think the Scarlets are still worth it there. And if you want to build a bit of a narrative around it, then I think one of the things might be that the Bulls are probably just happy to win this one. Do you know what I mean? Like, some of these tour games, I think if they could just come away with the points, they'll just look forward to next week and just move on.
Yeah, fair enough. And just for the total points punters, Mark saying their weather forecast is for rain tomorrow night. We've got a points line there, 48.5. Yeah, I'll probably have a look at the forecast closer to the time. Oracle, I was just going to say, I must say, I did watch a bit of the Scarlets game last week, and they beat Cardiff on the road. And I think both teams actually carry a bit of momentum. And so a bet I quite like here, and I think Johan also likes this bet now and then, is the 1 to 12 potentially. Like Mossman says, the Bulls get the win, but nothing fancy. And they win it by 1 to 12. And you'll probably get 16, 17 to 10 if you shop around on that one.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is the kind of game that I think the Bulls win this game. Scarlets. This is the game that they played Cardiff and I backed the plus only because it was 2 Welsh teams and the one had the plus, and it's a knee-jerk reaction to a lot of these games where I don't know what to do. I won money on that game, small money, but they haven't impressed other than winning the reverse fixture. So yeah, Jake White's not a moron either. It goes down to coaching. I'm not too worried about the players, and I don't know how big a difference a slightly weaker Bulls team is going to be. I think the Bulls win this game. So for the guys that are taking their best and second best bets, you can probably put a Bulls on the board. I know it's only 1 to 5, or if you're lucky, you can probably get 1 to 3. It's something to add to a multiple. I wouldn't get involved in this game. It's one of the games that I'd like to watch a little bit and then maybe get involved in running. And it's funny, a lot of the time I say that I'm going to watch a team or a game for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, even half an hour. And often I don't even have a bet in the game because it hasn't answered the questions I'm looking for. So this is one of those games where, can the Bulls win by more than 10? Of course they can. Can the Scarlets win the game? Yes, they can win the game. I just think the Bulls will edge it. When it comes down to penalties, I just think I'd bet you as Bulls to win the game. Put it in your multiple. I wouldn't be having a straight bet, and I wouldn't have anything on this handicap.
So just out of interest, so that's interesting when you're talking about, watching the game, looking for certain things. What kind of things are you looking at? You're looking for sort of set piece, how the scrum's holding up, whether the lineout's functioning, those sorts of things.
Yes, and I'm also looking at the wind. A lot of these games have wind, and you can see an advantage in a half. So the team's playing with the wind or against the wind, and also to see how they're playing. And obviously the second half, the players are more tired than they were, or more lethargic, whichever word you want to use. And I've often won money with wind. Interestingly, it's probably my biggest factor. If there's no wind, then yes, I'm looking to see how the players are playing the referee. I've never moaned at referees, but I do moan at captains or teams that don't listen to referees. The whole point of the referee is do your homework on the Monday and Tuesday morning in your video session. Not only watch your opponent's last few games, watch how the referee handled his last few games. So what's he blowing for? Because if they're not listening, they're in huge trouble. And the referee, a lot of people say, the referee is the reason why this team lost or he had a bad call. Of course, referees make mistakes. But the reality is if you don't play to the referee's whistle, in other words, what he's going to blow for, that's a problem. And I can see, and also, one other thing is I can see the attitude of the players. You can see their faces when they lose a penalty, how they're reacting. When they win penalties, you see the high fives, and you can see the not momentum. You can see the general, attitude, word of how players feel in that moment in the game. And I just get a feel for it, and I look at it and I say, this team looks better than that team. And if they aren't split by a big margin, I stay out because I can't read it.
Yeah.
So
I think
other things.
I was going to say, other things. I think I'd look at all those things as well. Not that I do a lot of in play or live betting, but look at that. Look at ruck speed. If they're able to generate quick ball, that's a recipe for to score points. Goal line defense is probably the other thing. If teams can hold other teams out and being able to defend driving mauls from lineouts close to the line, those sorts of things. If you can do those, you're going to be hard to beat.
I got one more thing to say, Brent, before you talk, and Mossman's 100% right. In fact, I remember Sean Nicholas having the 10-point rule at his handicap. That's what I was going to
talk about.
Right, so I've actually got another rule that I apply to time on the defensive. So if you've got a team, and this is very frequent in rugby, if you've got a team that's defending their line and they making 2.5 to 1 tackles, so you always get those stats put up on TV. They've made 100 tackles to 50 or 40 of the other team, and the other team is not scoring. And there's something in my mind, and I remember it from a few games when I was very much younger. And I'd say, if this team is attacking, in other words, their time in the 22 was, 20, 30, 40% more than the other team, and they weren't getting points, that it goes back to the defensive line. So I didn't think of it much of that, but I'd say to myself, if this team doesn't score in the next 7 or 8 minutes, they're not winning this game. And that was more of a board thing than a handicap one. And I haven't thought about it from a handicap perspective, but I've often backed a team that has been defending so ruthlessly that that the other team is just getting tired and tired and tired. And yes, the tackle team often is the one that's tired, but if teams are desperate to score and they don't score, they're the ones that become mentally tired. And I start backing defensive teams if they hold on for a long time. I'd say a long time.
Yeah, I know exactly what I mean. I think it's very demoralizing for the attacking team, right? When you camp down there for ages, hammering away, and in the end there's a turnover, and you're back at halfway. It was all for nothing, and I think that's quite deflating for teams sometimes.
And you'll get games where that happens 2 or 3 times in a 20-minute period. And then you think to yourself, if they haven't scored in these 3, 4, 5 attempts or whatever it is, just back the other team. The other team generally wins. And again, that's in my head. So I've seen it enough times to know. I don't even have to write it down when I see something. So I'm very reactive to what I see, and I don't react to 2 minutes of play or 5 minutes of play. And in running for me is actually a bet at half time. I'm going to say that 95% of my in-play bets are at half time. They're not at 25 minutes or 32 minutes. So I'm happy to wait till half time, and I look at the price and I go, all right. In fact, even before I look at the price, I write down what price I'm going to, what I think the handicap is. And if there's a 2 or 3 point advantage in my favor, I'm going to have a strike. I don't look at the betting during the play. I don't look at it. I literally log on, whatever, at halftime. I don't look at it during the game, because I'm also on streaming. And Brent, you'll remember a story that you told me with a PVR where you paused, you had to go and pour a drink or go to the toilet, and you came back and you saw a price and you were 45 seconds behind or a minute and a half behind. I'm on streaming, so I'm already 45 seconds behind. So honestly, recently, in the last couple of years, I actually don't have a bet while they're running on the field. I take a bet at halftime.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I'm going to move us to the next game, but I do want to just say that, I mean, I find betting in running is actually terrible, because by the time they've waited for your bet, something else has happened. So I either bet at a proper break in play, or I'll bet at halftime. And yeah, very similar to what you guys. I often look for a favourite, and that's why I was going back to Sean Nicholas' thing. A well-backed favourite starts badly, concedes 14 points in the first 10 minutes. There's still 70 minutes to go, and that's why I often look to get on the favourite in some way or other. But let's move on to the next game. I'm going to start with the Mossman on this one. It's also Friday night, so we'll have teams on this as well. We've got a big handicap here. Ulster over Ospreys. Ulster minus 15.5, and a points line here of 45.5. What do you reckon, Mossman?
Yeah, I think this is another game that's moved pretty significantly. I think it sort of opened at 9.5. It's actually interesting because one of the things I've kind of stopped following opening lines and where they go, just because it's not helpful to me, because I'm not able to bet early in the week really anymore. Like, I have to wait for limits to go up, need the volume.
Yeah.
And in some ways, like I think, mentally you kind of sit there and see these lines moving and you're kind of like, oh, I'm missing out on this value, these sorts of things. Like, but if you're not going to bet it, there's no point in actually even knowing it. So at the time, I happen to know this one because I caught somebody talking about it. But then the reason for that move was that the Ospreys, they've been, in the press talking about the number of injuries that they've got. They've got 55 or 60% of their normal first team players out injured or being rested with Wales, these sorts of things. And so I expected when the team came out that it'd be full of, kids from the reserves and the club competitions and all that kind of stuff. And it turns out it's actually not that bad. Like, because one of the things that I track is, I've got a player database, and there are only 2 names in the team that weren't in that database already. So they're not like they've just pulled people off the street, got them out of the car park and given them a pair of boots. So it's not as bad as what I was expecting, which means that I think this line is probably about right. I was if it really pulled out the reserves, this could easily be a blowout. Like, I'd look at this number and I would have said to you, it's going to have a long tail distribution in terms of outcomes. Go and bet the alt line, go and bet 25 instead of 15, that kind of thing. But when I saw the team, I was like, actually, no, that's not what's happened here. It's whether that's the coach, playing a little bit of mind games, because I'm sure, he's probably absolutely right. They do have all these guys out, but they have managed to bring in relatively experienced people to replace them. I'm sure they're not as good as the first team guys, but they're not complete scrubs. So that's kind of backed me off betting Ulster. So yeah, as I said, I think this line is probably about right.
Right, well said, Lame. I mean, just Gavin, to bring you in there, I know it's the same even with Leinster. When people say Leinster are resting their front row players, Leinster have got like a B and a C team. And if they put their B team in, you've got to be careful, because that's actually still a bloody good team. But then their C team is the one they sent to South Africa the one time, and they got sort of hammered. So good points out on the teams. Oracle, any thoughts on this game then? Anything Mossman said there maybe triggered something with you?
Yes and no. I didn't take too much notice of every detail of his analysis of this match.
There's going to be a test later, so I hope you're paying attention.
Yeah, so I also want to point this out, and I think this is quite important. And in this tournament, I'm really concentrating on the South African teams because I know enough about one team. I can do a little bit of homework on the other. In a game like this, it's quite difficult. And what I would do is look statistically. And I have, for some reason, I've got a bias against the Welsh teams this year. And again, I've corrected what I said about the Dragons last week. But this handicap, from what I saw in the results during the week when having a look at this, I think this minus arrives in just about every game for the last, 7 or 8 years. So I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I did see this being not enough, but I'm not throwing a lot of money at this. So that's the other thing, is I do spend less money on the games where I don't know enough information. I'm going to tell you this is a minus play. I don't think you have to watch the start of it. I haven't been impressed with Ospreys. Ulster been okay. I know that the Lions smashed them, but other than that, I'm not going to let that bias irritate me. I'm a small Ulster minus punter here, but really small. I don't have anything. It just feels wrong, and statistically, it feels wrong.
See, I think if you're going to go small, go for the odd line.
I agree, and I do that plenty of times. I'm definitely an alternative handicap player. And you're right. Instead of taking the 9 to 10 at 15.5, take 2 to 1 at 20, 19, 20, 21, whatever you can get it at.
Yeah, and I see the comment here about two lone players on the bench, and no doubt those are the two players I said that were names that.
Yeah,
I didn't.
Those are the two players that you didn't pick up in your database.
Yeah, that'll be exactly who they are. So these are the guys that have tapped up at the pub and say, "Hey, what are you doing on Friday night?"
And now tell me, Nathan, will those guys appear in your database next week because they've now played a game, or how do they get into the database?
Yes, right.
How do they qualify to get in the database? Correct.
No, they've played a game now, so they're not completely unknown.
Right. So they'll be on your radar now.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, that's how it works.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Just the Crow tips coming in, Ulster by 25 plus, and just to let you know, your man Bloodisgrun is in the Oracle. He's joined us as well, and we're going to stay with the Oracle on the next game. And I don't have a points line here. I don't know if anyone else saw it. The Pokebet are out early in South Africa, but for some reason this game didn't have a points line up when I looked. But Oracle, we got plus 13.5 Zebra here against the Lions. Yeah, I just want to have a quick squiz of this one. What I did here, I thought 9.5, so I didn't think the cap would be quite that big. I worry about the Lions on the road with a big handicap, but at the same time, they should be able to beat this Zebra side. What are you doing here?
Yes, this team beats Munster, and Stormers beat them. They've scored more than 15 points once, I think. By Bloodisgrun. Yeah, I'll mention a player in a minute. I can't think of one right now. Opa. How old do I have to be an Opa? I'd like to know. I'm only 53. I'm not quite an Opa yet. My 22-year-old son hasn't had a kid yet, but I'll be an Opa, I'm sure, in the next 5 to 7 years. Yeah, I'm just going to tell you, stick the Lions in with the Bulls on a multiple with your best bet of the weekend, because yes, they can beat this handicap, and I'm just not as confident as I was last week. I wouldn't be surprised if they do. Zebra is not going to win this game, so stick them in with Bulls. You say for Bulls and Lions win their game. I wouldn't be taking minus or plus for that matter. I just don't know what to do here.
Right, and I'm going to go down to Nathan. Johan just pointing out on the previous game he likes Ulster overs, and mate Bloodisgrun says, just joking, loves the show, guys. Yeah, thank you, mate Bloodisgrun. We love the banter as well. Right, Nathan, just to point out to everybody, from here on in, I don't think we've got any team news, eh? So you're going more on possibly a bit of instinct than as opposed to the model at this point, a little bit more gut feel.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And just to pull back the curtain a little bit, like when I guess when you're coming on and you're talking about individual games like this, quite often, I'll make up a little story about, why I actually, like one side or the other. But, the truth is when it's all kind of numbers driven is a lot of the time you don't necessarily really know because with these sorts of things, you're often stacking small edges together to come up with, like a projection or a number. So, but that doesn't necessarily make for a great podcast, right? Or whatever we call this thing. So, you make up a little story about why like one side or the other. But I agree with the Oracle here. Actually, I think that the Lions is probably the right side.
And in terms of your model on this game, in terms of what's going to influence the handicap, it's basically now down to team selection. It's all about teams that
that's the final. Yeah, correct. Yes, that's the final piece. Yeah, that's the final piece. So, that's once that's locked away, then the number's kind of final at that point.
Well, we've had a bit of movement in this next game. Sharks might have signed off because they've named when I say a strong look side, when I say it about the Sharks, you've always got to say like they're strong on paper because they've named it. When the team came out, I actually started reading and thinking it was a Bok team announcement, not a Sharks team announcement. Very strong there. So I actually thought -3.5. I was actually factoring a couple of Boks coming back, to be honest. Open -6.5. So the line has moved in the Sharks' favour here. We've got a points line of 48.5 in Durban. But as you say, Nathan, no value really talking in the fact that it's moved. But gut feel on this one?
Well, going against the Sharks has been a profitable exercise for the last kind of year and a bit now, right? Like even, coming over into this season. And, I don't follow coaching in and ins and outs for URC teams too closely. But, I imagine, is John Plumtree still there, or did he get the axe?
Must be. In fact, he's on. They're busy typing out the new sign for his office because he loses this game. He's coming back to New Zealand. He's done. I
just can't believe he's still there.
Game from the end.
I just assumed that he'd got the axe, but
no.
The Sharks. I don't. As I said, don't know the ins and outs of everything that goes on behind the scenes, and don't read the soap opera style stuff. But they just seem like a very dysfunctional outfit, right? It's almost like it doesn't really matter too much who they pick, and they bring back big names and they have big expectations. They have let you down more than any other team, I would have thought, over the last year and a half. So, again, without knowing who Glasgow are picking. They've clearly shown Glasgow that they're not afraid of the trip to South Africa. They went to Loftus and won the final. Some people have got short memories. So if they're capable of doing that, and you're telling me that the Sharks are, laying 9.5, if it's the same team, then give me Glasgow all day.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Nathan. In that, I think the Glasgow team's going to be important here because if they take a view of okay, this game we're playing against almost like a Springbok team. Let's, field a bit of a few fringe players, and all of a sudden that -9.5 might be tempting. So I think you're right on the Glasgow team selection. And I do want to say one thing about the Sharks. I agree with you on everything you said there, but I give them credit for bringing their team out earlier than everyone else. At least they come out on the Thursday. I wish everyone would do that. I mean, it would be so lucky if we could do the show knowing what the teams are, and the Sharks, I've noticed the last couple of weeks have come out early, a little bit like what the Boks do. The Boks normally come out very early. But anyway, at least we've got the Sharks team to go on. Gav, I know that's not going to make too much of a difference for you, though. What's your feeling here? Hard to get on the Sharks the way they've performed so far.
Not only that, Brent, at -9, it seems crazy. I wouldn't even put the Sharks into a multiple. I don't think they win this game on the handicap. So I'm a small punter on the plus here with Glasgow. And I'm going to tell you, I'm also, what do they call it in horse racing? Call it each way. I'm going to stick whatever my bet is. It'll be small. It won't be big. But I have half of it on Glasgow to win the game and the other half on the handicap. So, at least I get my money back if the Sharks do win the game. I can't see a minus here. This, for me, is Glasgow to win the game on the board. And listen, the team on paper, absolutely. The Sharks team looks fantastic. But they're not playing like their piece of paper is suggesting, or to put it in a retail perspective, they are not doing what it says on the box that they should be doing.
100%.
So I'm not impressed with the Sharks team, and I think there's a bit of value. I think -9 is way too high. I don't care how strong it is on paper. Something's going on. That coach must be under pressure. In fact, he could be under so much pressure that his kids are back in school in New Zealand already, and he just hasn't made the trip yet. And I think they've taken his sign off his manager door. I don't know. I think he's in huge cuck yet.
Yeah, because I see one of the comments there, which is, the Sharks team would pummel most international teams. And like, okay, you could have said that about the Sharks team over the last year. How many times do you want to say that and it not turn out? Like, you kind of got to learn your lessons. Look, could it be wrong this week? Absolutely. But like, I think it'd be, foolish to not look at the performances, versus what you said, what it says on the tin, as they say. And interesting, with the Sharks team being out a day early, I'm just wondering whether they just got their days wrong. And then, as I said, dysfunctional outfit that they might have not been.
They were playing tomorrow and not Saturday.
yeah. Hopefully they actually hold on to the game.
That's one. Yeah, no, that's a good one, Nathan. I must say. I will. I'm actually in the camp that I think the Sharks can beat this. Well, not can. Of course they can beat, but I think the Sharks will beat this handicap. I do think, as much as the Sharks have let me down over the years, I don't think the Sharks very often play their full team. If I could say a team of the strength, it's not often. And for me, even Etzebeth is a guy who performs. He's to me the key actually. For me, he performs whether he's playing for club or whatever. Johanna making the point, the box. Don't seem as committed for the Sharks, and I agree with you. But Etzebeth, to me, being the exception to the rule. I've seen him play some amazing games for the Sharks as well. But let's go on to the next game. We've got Nathan first up here. Stormers -5.5. It's come in slightly from -7.5 when it opened. Now we are set at this -5.5 against Munster. And I think Munster got a very good record against the Stormers. I think we've won twice in Cape Town, if I'm not mistaken, definitely in the final 2 years ago. Any early thoughts on this one? What we should be looking out for, Nathan?
I mean, a lot of this does come down to team use. For me, it always does. But I would lean towards Munster. I mean, again, nothing that I've seen from the Stormers tells me that that they deserve to be favourites against a team with Munster's pedigree. The only thing I would say is that Munster have had this habit of maybe not trying as hard in the early parts of the season or picking their spots, and we probably talked about this last season, that they seem like they're such an experienced club at kind of navigating their way through the season and being ready at the right time of the season. Some teams are just like that. And if they feel that this is not the right spot, then they kind of switch off a little bit and keep the powder dry, maybe for other games. So, but that tends to show up in the team selections. So we have to wait and see.
Yeah, the one thing about Munster I can't get out of my mind is that they lost to Zebra on the road early in the season. But the last couple of weeks have been quite impressed with them. They've been pummeled. Hey? Yeah, they were. Well, I mean, they were ahead, and then Zebra came and ended up running away with it. But so I can't get that out of my mind. But having said that, the last 2 weeks, I actually thought they came back quite nicely last week against Leinster. I think it was the week before. I think it was Ospreys they beat in the really, really wet conditions. So, yeah, it's a tough one, this. I do have a feeling that the Stormers will beat the handicap, but it's hard to really justify it on recent performances. Mr. Oracle, what you got?
Well, it's 4-0 at this point, and the 2 wins have been 2 points and 4 points. I think it's too early in the season for them to have a proper go here, Munster, at this. I don't know how strong this team will be. I'm gonna call a Stormers win here. I'm not necessarily going to say the minus. In fact, I'm going to chuck it in with the Bulls and the Lions, all 3 on the board, and we should be over even money here, and that's going to be my bet for the week. Looking at the other,
11 to 10, Gavin. You would probably get better if you shop around 11 to 10.
Yeah,
I'll take a treble in rugby if it goes over even money. 9 to 10 even money. At that point, I'm interested. Sorry, not necessarily over even money. At 9 to 10, I'm happy. But I think I've got a treble here, and I'm going to add 1 or 2 bets and have 2 bets here. But no handicap, honestly, in this whole game has got me that excited, except the Glasgow one. I'd add that in as well. But that's a nice straight bet. I wouldn't want to get involved in multiples with that. I think Stormers win this game. I don't know about this minus. Of course they can. And Munster 4-0, sorry. But I think it's really about Munster's attitude here and how strong their team is that they arrive with. And we don't know that at this point.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, and again, this is just off the top of my head, it's just an impression. It's not something I've looked at. But I think if you looked at Munster's sort of points per game, and I'm talking about points on the table rather than points on the scoreboard, through the first half of the season versus the second, I just had this feeling, and it may not be justified, that they're willing to kind of just take it easy through the first part and be ready towards the end.
Yeah, and they do perform better at the business end. I think I agree with you there. Johanna's going Munster 1-12, so that'll be quite a nice price, Johan, because you're actually calling the underdog there, of course, on the 1-12. So you'd probably get somewhere, I would imagine around 5-2, 3-1 on that one. And Mark Dumpy just making the point, which I don't think any of us on the panel are going to argue with.
Yeah, no, we agree.
Absolutely awful. And I mean, they're coming off Western Province, were also awful in the Currie Cup, so there's been a bit of a run now, a bit of negativity down there in the Cape. No doubt about that. Let's stick with you, Oracle. Your team Edinburgh delivered for you last week. They're minus 12.5 against the Cardiff side, coming off that Derby loss at home. And we've got a points line of 50.5.
Sorry, just one other thing I want to say about the Stormers is it's been quite hot recently. Wind's been blowing. Hasn't rained for, I'm going to say, a few weeks now. That ground should be reasonably not soft. I'm not going to call it hard, but it's not soft. The sun's been shining and the wind's been blowing, and it hasn't rained in quite a while in Cape Town. That more than likely would play into Stormers' hands than it would to Munster.
And the points line there, Gav, 45.5. I know Munster Stormers, pictured as a traditional battle, but I mean, if the conditions are good, the ground is hard, and the surface, they're obviously playing at the Cape Town Stadium. Well, I'm assuming they're playing at the Cape Town Stadium. I mean, that if you compare that to the old Newlands, Cape Town Stadium's definitely got more points in it in terms of the surface.
Yeah, at 45, 45, I'm a buyer here. I'm over 45.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be going under at this level. It just feels too low. We know it's too low. Mathematically, it's too low. This is the number we used to talk about in like 1999 in Super Rugby. 45, 48 was normal. I think in this competition in Cape Town in good weather, if the wind's blowing a lot, obviously they miss kicks more frequently than they do when it's not blowing. But 45 does feel too low. Sorry, I didn't even look at that in the beginning. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to suggest overplay there.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the weather now. A bit of cloud about. Wind doesn't look too heavy. So yeah, I'm saying unless there's some weather thing that I haven't spotted yet, I would say the 45.5 is the play there on that game.
I've been going to work in the last couple of weeks in shorts and a golf shirt or a t-shirt. I think it's summer's definitely arrived in Cape Town. It hasn't been cold. We took the blanket off the bed about 3 weeks ago. It's warm here. It's nice. It's not cold. It's good weather. It's great for rugby. Happy.
Right. Well, let's talk Edinburgh, Gavin, against Cardiff minus 12.5. Just to give you a little bit of what's happened in the week from a punting point of view, very little. It opened, as far as I can see here in South Africa, at any rate, at minus 12.5. So handicap's been stable.
I'm a minus punter here. And again, statistically, I've got to remember, looking at it the other day, this would have arrived, I think, also 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 6 times. I'm an Edinburgh minus punter. I was impressed with what I saw last week. They've got a bit of momentum. I like them. I don't think this is too difficult for them to beat this Welsh team.
Yeah, I'm just looking here. Certainly would have arrived last year. 17 points, Edinburgh winning in Cardiff. Yeah, having a look, they generally have won this fixture fairly comfortably, although Cardiff did also beat them fairly comfortably a few years back.
I'm talking about Edinburgh at home, though, not necessarily the fixture.
Edinburgh at home.
Yeah.
Okay, now, you're not talking about head-to-head?
No.
You're just talking
Edinburgh,
about Edinburgh at home.
Edinburgh at home against Cardiff, ignoring the Cardiff at home against Edinburgh games.
Okay, now fair enough. Yes, I see what you're saying. They've won all of, certainly the last 2.
I remember seeing that when I looked at these games. Yeah, but it's funny. Like if you gave me 16.5, I'm going to tell you it feels too high. It's like 12.5 feels too low, 16 feels too high. It just feels low enough for me to to have a punt here. Is it my best bet of the week from a handicap perspective? Up against Glasgow, I'm backing both Scottish teams. I'm going to tell you, take the double for a little bit. But I do like this one more than I like the Glasgow one. I think this arrives. Yeah, I like Edinburgh minus over Glasgow plus in the other game. Other two Scottish.
100%.
My two bets.
We'll get
best
Nathan.
bets.
Okay, Nathan's thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I agree. I think the minus is the way to go. Probably for the opposite reasons, or on the other side, which is that I think Cardiff are kind of unvaluable at the moment. They have underperformed versus the cap. I think the market has them overrated, and so yeah, same side, different reasons. So I suppose it's a bit of a double whammy. You've got the thumbs up on Edinburgh and thumbs down on Cardiff. So that's the way I look. And it's actually interesting that you say 12 and a half seems low.
Well, it's what I said about that. It's what I said about the Dragons game last week. Were the Lions, was that bad Lions or good Dragons? And I saw good Dragons. I didn't see bad Lions, but I saw good Dragons. So I always do a post-mortem. I've always done that for years and years and years. I go, if I get a bet wrong, what didn't I see? And was my bet, the team I backed, irrespective, plus or minus, did they perform as expected? And if they did, and I got it wrong, I obviously read the other team wrong. So that was the case of the Dragons. So you're right. In this case, you are correct. Bad Cardiff against good Edinburgh. This handicap is 12 and a half more likely because Cardiff has performed worse than what we expected Cardiff to perform at, and Edinburgh probably performed as well as we expected them to. I do feel that it's a bit more good Edinburgh than bad Cardiff, but you're right. Doesn't matter. We agree, different reasons, doesn't matter.
I must say, I was following that conversation, but eventually by the end, I was like, good.
Yeah, I lost my way as well. I lost my way.
I understand definitely what both of you guys are saying there. Right, Oracle will give you then first. Let's give you first crack at the next game. Connacht plus 9.5 against Leinster. I got to admit, I'm being impressed by Leinster. I'd say I'm going to throw out a theory on Leinster here, and I think they kind of did it again last week. Leinster tend to get the job done fairly early these days and then step off the gas a bit. So if you're an in-running punter, certainly something I'm considering is opposing Leinster at half-time if they've already gone into a good lead and got their bonus point, which happens quite often. But back to the game itself, we've got a 9.5 pointer here, Oracle.
I'm going to tell you to put Leinster to win the game on with your Stormers, Bulls, and Lions. We're getting a nice multiple here. I have no idea on this handicap, but I'm going to tell you, I think the last time Connacht beat Leinster might have been 2 centuries ago. It was so long ago. I can't even remember. Leinster win the game. I'm not touching
it. It wasn't that long ago. I remember them beating Leinster not that long ago. I'm going to check it out.
Doesn't feel like it was. Yeah, no, I'm adding Leinster to win the game with my multiple of the other 3 South African teams.
Let me just tell you what price that takes it to here. 18.
Are you working out my multiple? Nice.
Yes.
Sorry, I just want to point out something, Brent, while you're doing what you're doing. And a lot of people don't know this, but you can actually take this multiple with 4 companies, 4 firms, because we don't play at the same time. If you've got enough funds in your bank account, your float, you can take the first leg straight bet. Whatever you've won on that bet, you withdraw for that company. But even if it doesn't arrive in your bank account in time, you take that and you put it on the next leg. So if you take this bet with 4 legs in different companies, you actually might beat your price by as much as 10 or 15% as if you'd taken it in one company. And yes, you have to do 3-4 withdrawals.
Yeah, they call it a mechanical parlay is what they call it in the US.
I call it a manual
mechanical parlay is what they call it in the US.
Yeah, I call it a manual multiple.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you why I don't think many people will do that or where the issue is. So there's 2 things. First of all, because I've often thought of that myself. So say I place my first bet and it arrives. I then lose my nerve, because now I've got the winnings now, and I lose my nerve now to lump it all on the next one. And the other big problem with that is if you're taking a multiple of about 4 legs, it depends on your situation with the bookmaker. But if you're putting, in South African terms, 1,000 Rand on the multiple at 10 to 1 or whatever it is, maybe by the time you get to the last leg and you've got a bookie there and you try to get $5,000 down on the last leg, and you just can't get the bet down. That's the other issue.
That's a good point. Yeah. I think one of the and I've heard people in betting circles talk about this is that the multiples they're actually just a way of increasing volume. Like you're betting more than you normally would, but it's hidden by the fact that it's just rolling over. So it's not so much that it's some jumbo payout. You're actually betting more, but you're just rolling it forward. Now, part of that is that if you're multiplying out, 3 or 4 plus EV bets, then that's good. Otherwise, if they're negative EV, then you're actually just rolling out more of the VIG, more of the juice, and it's you're actually coming out with a huge negative EV bet instead of something positive. But that's the skill, is finding the plus EV.
No, exactly. I have to bring this one up because I know Oracle's going to enjoy it. If you bet like Oracle, you get his background. If you bet like the Mossman, you get the baby grand piano in the background there. Oracle, I thought you'd enjoy that one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just clever. I mean, as I said last week, I don't get involved in every single game. I've never professed to do that. Just bet smart. Don't be a mug. Don't bet on lucky numbers and there's casino games and all that other crap. You'll be fine. You stick to sport, stick to the games you'll make money. Done. Yeah. Easy.
I thought the discussions that you guys had in the last couple of weeks were great. Like, really enjoyed listening to it. I wish I'd been there for it, actually, because I thought it was good stuff. And I think, just basic discipline stuff, right? And I see people, whether it's in the forums or elsewhere, talking about, well, what I do in the next bet is going to depend on how this bet turns out. And it's like,
it can't be like that. Yeah.
No, it's completely independent, right? Like, it's you, because that way you're either overconfident, well, I just won, so I'm going to go again, or you're chasing, which is basically something that you do when you're on tilt, right? So just, basic discipline things, right? Like, completely independent bets. If you were going to bet it before, fine. Like, you don't decide a minute before kickoff that you're going to bet it because something happened in your previous bet. That's just completely the wrong way to think about it.
Yeah, so I've been accused of... Kira?
No, I'll put my hand up and say that I'm a much more disciplined than I used to be in that, but that is a mistake I sometimes make. I'll end up I'll get to the end of the weekend and I'll look back and go, goodness, like my best bet arrived, but I lost money because I ended up, for whatever reason, whether I was tilting, whatever, going to game, I ended up having a massive bet on something that I actually never really had a firm view on. I really became, instead of sort of following my logic and what I would consider my edge that I got over the bookies, I just basically gambled, and that happens to me. And as much as I'm improved and I'm better than I was, I'm still a gambler at heart. I still go on tilt, and I still do irrational things now and then. And it's what you're saying there really hits home for me, because I've done that on many occasions, and yes, I'm sure a lot of the guys who are watching the show have as well. Gab, sorry, what were you going to add there?
No, these 2 English sayings I've been accused of by many people in my time is having ice in my veins and having diamond hands. So I'm able to take that pressure and having the big bet and not worrying about. I'm trusting myself. I've lost the big ones, but if I have a big bet, I'm happy. I've thought about it for a while and I've plotted it and I've waited for it. And there's been weeks I've had one bet, or there's even been a week where I haven't had a bet. When I was younger, and I mentioned it the last couple of weeks, I've been in this industry from 1999, and I've got to tell you, the first 10 years I just lost. Just paid my school fees. 2011 was my first winning year, and other than COVID, I've been good. I'm a gambler when it comes to a lot of life decisions. In betting, I've gambled, and I think I actually put in a rule. I have a few beers on a Saturday, and I switched my computer off at 3:00 on a Saturday because I made some really stupid decisions on the 5:00 Super Rugby games and the 7:00 Super Rugby games on a Saturday, where I wake up in the morning and I think I'm buying breakfast because I've won on a game, and I look at my betting account and I go, Oh, you moron! What did you do that for? That was stupid. So yes, money management and discipline, absolutely. Those are 70% of your success in betting. The other 30% is finding the winners. Seriously, money management and discipline are huge. Can't explain it anymore.
I know for myself, like when I sometimes I find myself searching for a bet or searching for a reason to put a bet on. And I know when I start to do that, it's like, okay, just step away. Like, you shouldn't have to search for the reason and try and like justify it to yourself. Like, it's either there or it's not. And if it's not, just leave it, just walk away. And that, pretty good at that sort of thing. And I don't tilt in terms of my betting discipline. It was quite funny because like last weekend I was, I had a kind of a tough start to the weekend and I was kind of down. And my tilting was, yelling at the neighbours' kids because they tried to throw something in the car. So like, it was quite funny. I got out and yelled at these kids, and then as I was driving off, I was kind of like, yeah, I wonder if I would have done that if I'd one of my bets or not. And I think the honest answer is I wouldn't. So it was like, that's it all comes out. But that's how it happens for me. But but I did get, I got to the last game of the weekend, and as I said, I was down across these bets, and and I was looking at, I think it was Leon Stade Francais. I looked at it, and it's to me it was a plus EV bet. I looked at the numbers, it looked right, and it would have been easy for me to kind of say, maybe you lose your nerve, because that's the flip side, right? You can get overconfident, but sometimes you can get a bit gun shy, and I kind of looked at it like, it's a bet that, if I took aside everything that had happened up to this point in the weekend, would I still have made this bet? And the answer was yes. Go and do it. It came out a winner. So it's one of those things that just you need to be memoryless, like in a way. Forget about everything that's happened up to that point and just treat everything as a new day, a new bet.
100%. That's definitely the way to play. And I think all of us have some degree of weakness. And the other thing which I will say has helped me is the amount of rugby these days. In the old days, maybe you only got 3 or 4 games on the weekend. I'm going back, so you kind of felt like on a Saturday, if you didn't catch it, you had to chase in the next game. Whereas now, quite frankly, yes, you even have midweek rugby sometimes, and there's just so much on. There really is no reason to chase. But yeah, as I say, I'll always have a little bit of that streak in me, I think. We chatted about a lot of other stuff. Nathan, I can't remember if I got your opinion on Conor Leinster. I don't think so.
No. So this is one that I would probably, if I could wait and get a bigger number on Leinster, like if people would sort of steam into this, I think I would take Conor. Like I just think in a local derby kind of game, it's probably, and I don't know what the conditions are like, but it's Ireland. Hopefully it's raining. Like if it was tight, and the conditions weren't good, I think that a plus number over 10 might start to look pretty enticing.
Well, I tell you, last week, the Connacht game at home last week, the weather wasn't great. They do have the artificial surface now, but all the head-to-head, I think it was against Ulster, all pointed towards unders. And in the end, yes, I was tilting a bit. I had a big go at under 49.5. And yeah, unfortunately, I think it was 36 points at halftime. It was just one of those things. But yeah, the weather quite often bad that part of it. I wanted to bring this one from Shane on because I saw it on Twitter as well. Well done, Shane. He backed the South African women today to beat Australia at 5-1 in the cricket. I believe we're into the final. I didn't watch the game at all. So well done, Shane, on finding that one all the way over there in Ireland. That's impressive stuff. Right, let's keep Mossman on there. We got one more game of URC, and then we'll touch on the NPC. Dragons plus 5.5 against Benetton, and a point count of 49.5. Gut feel here.
Gut feel is Dragons is my gut feel. I think home up underdogs in general, and I think the Dragons are better than I think what people were expecting, and it's just a matter of whether the market's caught up to that, and I'm not sure that it has based on this number.
Tell me something, and I wouldn't expect you to have this at the tip of your fingertips, but gut feel, because something you said there triggered with me is something I was thinking last week. How do you think you'd do if you backed the home underdog? So in this case, the Dragons. But in every match where there's a home underdog, you back them on the board. Do you think you'd come out doing okay?
I think it would depend. I think a big part of it would it when you did it. So one of the things I've done is I've done the analysis across, and this is the thing when people, they kind of talk about, lines being, miles off and, all this kind of stuff, and that some bet will win easily. And I kind of, shake my head a little bit, because when you do the analysis on the closing line, you find that it's incredibly accurate. Like, over a big sample size, it's almost exactly 50-50 of which side of the line it's going to fall on, It's not the bookmakers that are being smart, it's the market, right? So you've got a lot of people, a lot of eyes on, some pretty smart people doing some pretty smart things. And that line is efficient, like not on an individual game basis. Clearly, like, it can be wrong and is wrong, but over a big enough sample size, what you'll find is that home dogs, whether it's home or away, underdog, favorite, it's really accurate, like in terms of that 50-50 split. I'm sure if you went back further enough in time, it was probably more off, like it would have been perhaps, shaded towards favorites and those sorts of things. But no, it's pretty efficient these days.
Right. Okay. Pretty even split. I guess maybe what will also be a factor in that case is what price you're getting as well. Like, maybe if you're getting if the home team's plus 14.5 and delivering the win, you might be, you might come out. What I used to like doing is running these experiments over a season, for example. I used to do it with the spread betting quite a lot. Let's maybe look at getting some of those going again. Right, Dragon says Johan on the board and a small bet. Plus and a small bet on the board. Oracle, are you in agreement?
I wouldn't even bother with a plus here. This team will win the game. They got the wrong favourite here. But it is bottom of table versus bottom of table. So, not bottom of table, but bottom half of table versus bottom half of table. I do think they've got this wrong. And I think this handicap is a lot to do with statistical data over the years, and not too much being weighted for current performance. I do think the Dragons are better than Benetton. I expect them to win. I mean, they could quite easily have beaten that Lions team last week. I think the Lions underestimated them. I'm going to tell you Dragons win this game. They win the game. I wouldn't even take the plus.
Dragons on the board. We're going to come to the best bets. Now, just my blood is couldn't say, how about something on the World Cup ladies final? I might just do that. I actually did a video preview on the South African ladies game Italy last week, and I came very confidently on the South African ladies at 18-10. Yeah, I mean, they only lost by 4, but I was disappointed they didn't win, and it kind of sent me on tilt. So I'm a bit nervous about women's sport in general at the moment. But let's get into the NPC semi-finals, of course, we've got taking place. I'm not even going to ask Oracle his opinion on these. We'll go straight to the Mossman. Mossman, have you had a look at these two? Bay of Plenty minus 2.5 against Canterbury?
Yeah. So I'm on Bay of Plenty here at 1.5. I see it's moved a little bit already, but this one. So the way I describe this is, so Bay of Plenty have been a good team to back all year, and I think they're one of these slightly under the radar teams because they're not full of big names. What they are is a really solid forward pack full of Super Rugby players. Not big names, but Super Rugby players. And the other thing that's interesting about the Bay of Plenty, so they're based at a place called the Bay of Plenty is the main city there is a place called Tauranga, and then in Tauranga is the base for the New Zealand Sevens team. And what you find with this Bay of Plenty team is you've got this sort of solid core pack of Super Rugby players, and then a back line that's full of these Sevens guys. And it's been a pretty good combination, really. And so it's I think Bay of Plenty kind of flying under the radar for a lot of the season. Canterbury interesting because, again, a big name that people recognise, and they would look at the team sheet and also see some big names. But these are big names that have kind of underperformed for the Crusaders and also underperformed for Canterbury through the early part of the NPC season. In the back half of the NPC season, they got a few of the All Blacks back, like last week, for example, when they won that quarterfinal. They had Gary, Bell, Newell all back. Those guys aren't there. So all of the All Blacks have been pulled this week. They basically came back. So Canterbury had them for
60 on last week that I see.
Round. Again, for a final round against Waikato, which they won to kind of get through in a game that Waikato didn't really care about. And then they smashed Tasman last week with all these All Blacks. None of those guys are there. I think this is the same Canterbury team that weren't good in the early part of the season. Bay have been ultra consistent. Same team, they picked the same guys. I like Bay to win this one and cover that.
Right, and then we got the second semi, Wellington, -6.5 against Waikato.
Yeah, this is an interesting one too, because Waikato have also, they had Jacobson and Finau back last week, who are not there. So again, all these All Blacks have been pulled. So I lean Waikato here. That's come in from 7.5. I think Wellington, they're not kind of some of the Wellington teams that we've seen in the past. I think they're missing a few players. They're very inexperienced in the halves, and they're actually missing. So Jackson Garden-Bashik, who was playing 10 for them, is not playing, assuming he's injured. So, you've got very inexperienced half pairing for Wellington against the Waikato team that's got Xavier Rowe, who is a Chiefs player, and Aaron Cruden, who I think you guys have probably recognised from his days with the All Blacks.
I didn't realise he's still playing.
Yeah, he is still playing, and interestingly enough, because Brett Cameron has done his knee playing for Manawatu, and Wellington, the Hurricanes are now short of a number 10, so it sounds like he's going to play Super Rugby again next year for them. So, I think being a semi-final is probably going to be tight. Wellington may well win this, but they might win it by something less than 5.
Nathan, I want to ask you. Shane's asking the question about building what data points you need a power rating. Now, we talked a while ago about doing a show, perhaps going into this sort of discussion. So what I'm going to say to you is if you can answer the question fairly briefly for Shane, by all means do it. But if you think it makes a better topic for maybe a standalone show or a show on its own, then we'll definitely put that together. What do you think?
I can give you a basic answer to this, not so much for the totals, but for the handicaps. Like if you just took a season worth of results, look up in Excel how to use a solver, and you would be able to basically sort of reverse engineer a set of power ratings out of that, and that'd be a good start.
Yeah, so I'll jump in on that topic as well, Shane. I would say, and I did do this when I had time, and again, I'll go back to my comment of pretty much every week, bookmakers better be very scared. In 3 years, I'm retiring. I've set my date. I told Brent yesterday, 29th of February, 2028. So that's 3 years, 4 months, 1,231 days, just over 1 million seconds from now, I'll be retired. And yes, I will go down to I'm a grandmaster at Excel, and I will put a thing together. But what I do like when it comes to handicaps is I like to write down the opening handicap, so the Monday handicap or Tuesday handicap, the settled handicap, so the Thursday night, Friday morning handicap, and then the game starting handicap, and then the distance from that handicap to the actual result. And I do like to run a second result, and I did do this for a while and it worked, but again, you need time for this, is all tries to count, or discounting stuff that was really random that shouldn't have happened. And I do believe in luck. I'm not saying luck isn't a place here, but if a team goes over the try line 5 times and they only get 2 tries, 3 of them are disallowed, I give them some points. So in other words, I'm making a manufactured result from the way I scored the game based on what I saw, and taking extreme luck out of it and TMOs and stuff like that, where, in other words, if all things were equal, this is what the result would have been. And you go and work out your points from the result, or your handicap from the result, and you'll start to get an idea of what the handicap should have been and what punters would have taken, because the price comes down to, I always say, the value of something is what people are prepared to pay for it. So if people are, New Zealand in their heyday, I always went against them, because I know that when they priced up them at -18, they were actually a -15 team. And the bookmakers knew that the punters were going to come for them. They knew that they'd take them. So punters would take the -18, it would go to 19 at 20 in that example. And honestly, you could get 15 at 15, 16 at 10 when you should have got it at 9 to 10. So I made money going against the bookmakers when I knew, especially the popular result was arriving. And the same would apply to these board prices. I mean, Leinster to win the game, 0.28, 1.28 in decimal terms. it's probably 1.33. So you're overpaying. You're being charged a premium because the bookmaker is expecting most of the punters to back that team to win the game. So, yeah. And I'm going to say this as well. You've got to put your own Shane into it, or whoever you are when you're building a model. You've got to put the way you see the game. It might be 10 or 15% of the handicap, the calculation of the handicap, the weighting. 10 or 15% must be the way you see it. You have to put some individual stuff into it. If you're going 100% on numbers, it's not going to work. You have to build that. And if it doesn't work, you've got to keep tweaking it until you get a set of solid results, and then you know that it's working.
Nathan,
but it's time.
Thanks for keeping you on the brief. Oracle, I'm not going to ask you anything more now. In fact, Oracle, I do want to say one thing though. The bookies are scared for 3 years' time when you retire, but I'm actually a little bit more scared because somehow you still find the time to send me the odd 23-minute voice note, and I would hate to know how. And I always, when I'm listening to your voice note, I'm normally listening at 1.5 or 2. So I can cut it down to a reasonable length of time. But I'm always thinking you can't record it at 1.5 and 2. You are actually recording that voice note for 23 minutes. And what scares the hell out of me is what sort of voice notes I'm going to get from you when you retire. I might have to retire to listen to the voice note.
You're in huge trouble, Brent.
Just going to call you up and just do a Shakespeare play from start to finish or something.
You know what, Brent? No, I'm going to say one more thing before you go. So I send my wife voice notes as well. And the other day, she replied and she said, "Your voice notes make me laugh." And we in December we've been together for 30 years, and in your 30th year, you getting a voice note back from your wife saying, "Your voice notes make me laugh," then your problem's with my wife, Brent, not with me, because if she's enjoying them, surely everybody else is enjoying them.
Listen, I don't think we should take the lady who's been married to you for 25 years as the ball, what should I say, the measuring stick for anything, quite frankly. No, I'm only kidding. The Oracle, thanks very much. Shane is finishing it off nicely. He says, great answer. Many thanks, King Oracle. Long live the king into retirement. Right, guys, let's finish off. Oracle, I'll start with you. Your best bet of the games that we've spoken about.
Edinburgh minus, and then I'm going to go and tell you Dragons on the board. And then, after those two, take a multiple. Lions, Bulls, Stormers to win the game on the board. Chuck in Leinster if you want to go for a quad. But honestly, Dragons to win the game on the board and Edinburgh minus. Those are my two bets. Glasgow is a third, sorry. But yeah, the two for me, Dragons and Edinburgh.
Johan Esterhuizen coming in his weekly travel. Dragons plus 6.5 in agreement with the Oracle. Scarlets plus 11.5 against the Bulls. Edinburgh minus 12.5. So very much singing off the same hymn sheet there. And that's at 11-2. Just before I get Nathan's final thoughts, Henrik's quite great to have the Undertaker watching the show there. We look forward to having him on again soon. All hail King Oracle. The boys are coming out in full force. Nathan, what's your best fancy for the weekend at this point?
Yeah, I agree on the Edinburgh minus and go the Bay at minus 2.5.
Right, Bay of plenty there in the NPC. Thanks everyone for joining us. We had great fun, great chat. Thanks to all the guys in the live chat. Nathan, enjoy the rest of your day. Hopefully you get to hit a little bit of wine and Coke later on, like the Oracle. And,
try it. You'll be happy.
Oracle, enjoy it. We'll bring the crow tips in for the final stages. Dragons on the board is a big risk. Thanks everyone for joining us on the Handicap Rugby Chat That Matters. We'll see you next week, Thursday night at 9 o'clock. The international